Shalom everyone. So I decided to make another video today, this one being about Islam, of course. And I wanted to do somewhat of a brief video regarding the Islamic heaven or paradise. And I've said many times before that, in my opinion, Islamic heaven isn't really a heaven. It's more of a brothel than a heaven. And even though, the Quran repeatedly assures believers that in heaven there's not going to be any fear or sadness, overall, the Quran doesn't really place much of an emphasis on God's presence. It focuses more on the believer's comfort and, sensual pleasures. And with jihadis, the martyrs, the people who fight in the way of Allah, it is said that they have a one-way ticket to heaven. There's no doubt about it. There's no ifs and buts. They go straight into heaven. Now, one hadith that I do want to read, it is said that Muhammad said, and I'll read it now, "The martyr is special to Allah. He is forgiven from the first drop of blood that he sheds. He sees his throne in paradise, and he will copulate with 72 huris." Now, huris are, let's just call them virgins, for the sake of it. And I think overall, the Islamic heaven in general is a place where women are pretty much treated like sex slaves. And that is my opinion, of course. And I'm going to read a Quran verse now, which is Quran Surah 78, verse 31. It says, "As for the righteous, they shall surely triumph. Theirs shall be gardens and vineyards, and high-bosomed virgins for companions, a truly overflowing cup." Quran 56, verses 7 to 40 says, "We created the huris and made them virgins, loving companions for those on the right hand." Now, the verses go on and on and on in that specific surah, but I'm going to read everything. I just want to sort of leave it at that. And now I do want to read a hadith which talks about those huris, the virgins. Yeah, let's just read it. I think you'll be gobsmacked just as, I was. But so a hadith says, "Each time we sleep with a huri, we find her virgin. Besides, the penis of the elected never softens. The erection is eternal. The sensation that you feel each time you make love is utterly delicious and out of this world, and were you to experience it in this world, you would faint. Each chosen Muslim will marry 70 huris, besides the women he married on earth, and all will have appetizing vaginas." Now, there is some debate over how many huris. Some people say 70, obviously some people say 72, but I think the overall consensus is at 72. I do want to read another hadith now. So, it is Anas said that the Messenger of Allah said, "The servant in paradise shall be married with 70 wives." Someone said, "Messenger of Allah, can he bear it?" Muhammad said, "He will be given strength for 100. Muhammad also said, "Each of them will be given strength of 100 men in his eating, drinking, coitus, and pleasure." There are more hadiths and Quran verses which go into, a lot more detail regarding the huris, what they look like, what kind of hair they have, what kind of breasts they have, what kind of vaginas they have, literally. But I don't want to go into that really. I just sort of wanted to really make a point that Islamic heaven isn't heaven. It's far from it. And, there are some Muslims. There is a lady from the UK. I forgot her name now. But in one of her interviews that I watched, she was actually asked about the 72 virgins. And her reply was that, the Quran, the Hadith didn't mean 72 virgins. It really meant 72 raisins. Raisins which you eat. And then I'm thinking that even makes much more, makes it much more ridiculous sounding even, especially when, you know, you do read, excuse me, more of the Quran, more of the Hadith, and you see the Huri's descriptions, and, you know, they've got black eyes, they've got, you know, long hair, and, you know, all of the descriptions. But, so yeah, I thought raisins don't make any sense even more. Now, not only do these very pious, believing Muslim men get 72 virgins, they also get a lot of slaves who are young boys. There are people who, Muslims, who say that these young boys are only there as servants to these pious men. However, there are talks where people are saying that these pious Muslims will have intercourse with these young boys as well, these young servant boys. And, you know, when I know all this, when I read all this, when I ponder about it, and, you know, even in the past as well, I think to myself, you know, the only possible creator that I know that, you know, how did I want to word it? You know, the only possible creator of this debauchery, as I call it, you know, of this apparent so-called Islamic heaven, is none other than Lucifer himself. You know, this does not come from, you know, our true wonderful creator. And when we actually stop to compare our heaven with, well, their heaven, you know, we actually are left with nothing to really compare. You know, the Islamic heaven, you know, as I keep saying, you know, isn't a heaven at all, but a place where sick men indulge in their lustful activities. You know, uninhibited by moral restraints at all. You know, a sex market, if you will. You know, where men can choose at will, you know, any women to have sex with. And that has to be at the very bottom of the depravity of what I think is a fallen mankind. You know, our heaven, you know, when we look at our heaven, you know, our heaven is pure, it's God-centered and reserved for, you know, the actual pure saints that have turned away from all this worldly lust, you know, all this filthy lust that is worldly. You know, our glorified bodies, you know, when you look at it, will exemplify the highest morality possible. And I don't believe that that could, or the same could be said for the Islamic heaven or for the believers of Islam. When you know, dig deep and really look at the Islamic heaven, you know, their paradise. And, you know, as much as I could go into more depth, into more detail regarding this, I sort of just wanted to, like I said, excuse me, leave it at this and sort of just go into a little bit of information, just to really sort of compare and contrast, you know, their heaven with our heaven, but also, you know, let people see that their heaven is just full of, yeah, debauchery, like I said, and it could not be from, you know, our wonderful creator, our heavenly father. So yeah, I actually want to make another video, hopefully in the next couple of days, another Islamic one, to talk about, you know, the Islamic Judgment Day, because that too also differs from, you know, our Judgment Day. And there are certain things where, you know, Muslims are said to, you know, cross this, you know, bridge in order to get into heaven. That's over, the bridge is over like hell. But anyway, like, I'll go into detail a bit more with that as well. So yeah, thanks for listening, and until next time, shalom.